So next we have Kyle Lintner, Principal and Managing Partner at Kate Ratio, coming on to talk about freight markets, what he's seeing in there, his kind of take on that. Is Kyle, I believe he said he was there. Do we have Kyle? There he is.
Hi, Kyle.
Hey, everyone.
How are you doing today?
Doing well, my friend. How about you?
I'm doing quite well. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. So.
Always.
So you had some your weekly update, and you talked about some things on LinkedIn concerning the freight markets, and I can bring out some of those charts just to kind of set the scene here, because I'd like to get your thoughts on why they are where they are and where they're moving, and kind of expand a little bit on some of those thoughts that you put out there on that update. Does that sound good for you? Okay,
yeah, I'm all for it.
All right, so let me first pull up here. I've got the outbound tender volume index, and if we can show this on the screen, Cody, I'm not sure if we can get everybody to show this. I can talk to it if not, but okay, so here we are. We're looking at the outbound tender volume year over year, right? 2020 is right here in this green mountain. You can see its elevation. Now, I've got 2018 and 2019, and you can see what Zach was talking about and what you spoke about as well, Kyle. It is well above even the height of 2018. Volumes are definitely up. The other part of this, because there's a couple parts to this to kind of talk about, is outbound tender rejects. So here's the outbound tender rejects. We're just looking at the volume of truckload, all modes, flatbed, dry van, and reefer in the previous slide, or the previous dashboard. And now we have outbound tender rejects, which is also all modes. And these are the ability or the willingness of the carriers to pick up that freight. And you can see it's way down here at 5.58, which is above last year, which is nothing to write home about. And you see, Zach talking about a significant uptick. Well, here's a significant uptick of tens of basis points. The same time last year, it actually jumped from 22 to 24, 28. So, it's roughly, in 2018. So, that's where we were looking at extreme pressure on rates. So a little bit, it's still 1,900 basis points down, right? So not all that great. And then you look at the DAT, if we look at the DATVF.VNU, which is spot rates, right? And I look at this let's pull this out for full year. Here we are sitting right here. Let me pull these crosshairs out. So here we are sitting here. Now we have been slightly above, pulled forward over 2019, but nowhere near 2018. And we start to see this kind of level off, or possibly even a decline to fall under 2019. So there's the stage. Did I set the stage correctly enough, Kyle?
No, yeah, you did a great job.
Great. So what is it what are you seeing here? What do you make out of this information?
Sure. So to continue what we're trying to do with setting the stage, I'll just elaborate on what I was initially trying to say, and that's, we don't have the full picture. You guys do a great job over at FreightWaves with Sonar, and you're able to show us most of the components. The only piece that we're missing is capacity. So with any market, and I would say that freight is obviously a market now, especially because we have these components out there to view from a data standpoint. You have supply and demand, and where those two intersect is how we get price. So in going through what's on Sonar, we can see volume, which is demand, and we can see price. And by having two of those three, it's like being back in high school math. We can figure out what the missing component was, and that's available capacity or supply. So what I was trying to say was, hey, everybody, look, we need to do some comparables, and let's look year over year for volume. Obviously, like you just showed and like Zach was talking about, volume right now is extremely strong, the highest on record. And then we look at tender rejections, and it's almost the same as last year. And I think everybody would agree that 2019 was a very, very tough year for carriers. I'll put it like that. So if rejections are low, but the volume is through the roof, then I get people asking me the question, why aren't rates more like 2018? Why are rates, albeit better than 19, but still kind of depressed? So then we have to try and think through this. All right, if I have the equilibrium of volume and capacity meeting with muted results in price, this must mean that there isn't an even distribution of that volume. And that's what, like Zach was talking about. We see a lot of this concentrated on the West Coast, and particularly LA. So then I wanted to take it one step further and show rates for outbound LA, which are screaming. They're 60 to 70 cents higher than what they were just a few weeks ago. And that's somewhat alarming for those who, from a shipper standpoint, but for obviously brokers and carriers, it's what you like to see. So then one of the other things I threw out there was if you take just tender rejections from LA against all the other major markets, you can see that LA is clearly moving away from the pack in that sense. And that's extremely important because we want to look at cancellations for a market like LA, which is so much larger than any other markets. Just a 1 percentage point increase in tender rejections from the nation's largest freight market means significantly more than some mid-tier market having a 5 or even 10% move in rejections. Taking that one step further, I showed the rates for that entire West Coast region against the South and then against the East, and you can see that West Coast rates are clearly outpacing everything else. So what we can infer from all of that is that there is volume that is moving out of LA, and it needs to get somewhere fast. Like Zach said, a lot of this is long haul, and I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. That's a very positive sign for everything too. All of that means is that the shippers don't care what the price is going out the door. They need those goods moved fast, and that's a positive sign for the economy because that means that the U.S. consumer, who's 70% of GDP, is starting to come back.
Are we also seeing, you said that there's pockets where activity like the West Coast, right, or outstripping the other parts of the country. Do you see that in mode as well, like dry van, reefer, flatbed, that it's really concentrated in dry van and probably in an industry of essential goods, or are we spreading this over other industries or non-essential, maybe discretionary spending? What are your feelings on that, Kyle?
That's a really good question, and I think the answer is discretionary. It's going dry. So we obviously have strength in reefer. The produce season is still going on, although it is winding down. If you have the dry going and it's coming from LA, we have to assume that this is consumer demand for retail goods. But Zach hit the nail right on the head. We did see the drop in imports into LA. So this is from warehouses that are already in the area. And that's why I mentioned markets like Phoenix and Stockton. They're going to see this next because if LA is demanding such a high premium in rates, any available capacity in the general area is going to head to LA. I had a conversation with a carrier in the Midwest who said that he has all of his trucks west of the Mississippi just head to LA because it's easier for him to get back to Missouri and Ohio from LA than it is from him to take something from Texas. And he knows he's going to get paid rich for it anyway. So I don't know how long this situation lasts, but like I mentioned in the video, price is just an advertising mechanism. And right now it's telling everybody, hey, there are goods to be moved. I don't care what the price is. I just need the trucks to do it. So that's going to soak up any capacity in the area. And that's how we get that domino effect from first problem will be LA. The surrounding markets will become the next problem. And then if this holds up, then we get the nationwide move up in rates. And that's how we get a sustained move higher, from this, call it bearish 2020 start.
Yeah. So and there's the question. You're looking at the long haul coming out of there and the volume. So the question is, how long can this sustain?
Right.
And I look to those markets as, and if we bring up the chart one again, please, Cody, if we could. I've got the maps up here of the United States, and we're look. Oh, okay. That's my F11. If I could just listen to myself and pull up the chart, we'd be in great shape. So I've got it up here, Kyle, and what I've got up here, and for everybody, I've got a heat map on the left-hand side of the United States, market outbound tender volumes. This is the latest reading. So this is today, and the outbound tender rejects is the height. And we're looking at this. You see the dark areas down here in the Inland Empire in L.A., and you see it over here in the port cities, et cetera. And the outbound tender rejects are starting to actually become higher in the inland as those trucks start to move that way, right? Even though O-Tribe right now, or the rejections and the rates are being pushed up. If we look to the right-hand side here, we're looking at the weekly change in outbound tender market share and the outbound tender volume on a weekly change. And you can see these seem dark blues over week. They're starting to weaken, and the inland is starting to heat up a little bit. So there's this fragmentation that's going on. And then when we take it out to maritime and look at some of these maritime indicators.
You know what? Hold it right there for 1 second, Mike.
Okay.
And I don't want to interrupt you, but this shows a very important point that Kevin was alluding to about mode. If we go back to that chart and we look at the outbound tender market share, you can see that the change, the weekly, you can see that that Inland Empire and LA and that general area is increasing. And then we look to something, and I hate to do this because I keep picking on it, but look at Chicago in the deep red for the market share drop. So what's one of the most voluminous, busiest rail lines out there? It's LA to Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So if we can see Chicago continually staying in the cellar, never increasing in volume, what does that tell us? Those goods from LA aren't going via rail to Chicago for further distribution. It's going over the road long haul because whoever needs it on the other end needs it now and doesn't have the time to wait for the cheaper rail route.
That's a solid point. And the other thing, just real quick, because we're running out of time here, is now we've got imports that have been down, and I was going to show some things that were down, and we can take this off screen here. But we're looking at other. So the imports have been down.
Yep.
Greg Miller's starting to say they're coming up. We've had a few of the alliances unblank a couple sailings, but nothing really significant. So it is coming, but it has been down for a couple weeks, and the across the board, all industries, imports, just maritime imports, just down. So we're starting to see these volumes evaporate a little bit. Are we going to go into it? That, to me, would indicate we're going to see a little bit of a dip that's going to happen from these type of ports. It's going to move inland type of thing, and then we'll see it come back. But it doesn't bode well necessarily for rail, does it? Because these now, if we have a 2-week lag or 3-week lag for those inventories or that freight to hit the docks, it's going to have to hit the trucks pretty quick. No, Kyle?
Well, I'll tell you, I think we're okay. And really quick, we have time, we can show why. If you pull up a chart of total business inventory to sales ratio, you'll see that right now we have a number that hasn't been seen since the depths of the great financial crisis in 2009. So we have a ton of goods on hand, and that'll hold us over until this new merchandise comes over from China or whatever points west. Usually you don't want to go hand to mouth. I don't think we're going to get into that situation just because we have so much merchandise in the warehouses and in the distribution centers. So it's a patch, but I think it's a large enough patch to hold us over. Otherwise, yes, this little boom that we're seeing right now could quickly turn into a bust. But I think we're safely into a cushion that we'll be all right. Pull up an all year, you'll see that.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. If we could put that on the screen real quick, I did F11 already. So, so there. This is what you're talking about, and looking at this right here, boom. This spike right here is showing you that we're draining since March the warehousing. We've been draining. Solid point. Solid point. Hey, Kyle, thank you so much for being on. How do people get in touch with you and K-Ratio?
Thank you, always. Easiest way to do it, I'd say, is k-ratio.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much, my friend. Stay safe out there.
Thanks, guys. Good seeing you.